Welcome to Mental Junk Food. This is CV Smallwood, and you're at the place where we talk about all things comics, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, pop culture, and everything in between. And today we're going to be talking about the James Gunn situation. Now, this stuff is pretty vile, so let's go ahead and get into it. Now, for those that don't know, hasn't been following it, well, first of all, the news is just everywhere. It's on mainstream media now. It's all over YouTube. It's just all over probably Twitter. You name it. Facebook, it's everywhere. But James Gunn, for a period of a couple of years in his past, made many jokes about rape and pedophilia on Twitter. A lot of them. It was roughly about 3 days ago, as of this video, that he got found out. A lot of people, a lot of internet sleuths started investigating his Twitter and found a lot of these old tweets. And it wasn't one or two tweets, it was a lot. And we're not really certain for how many tweets it actually was because he deleted 10,000 tweets off his Twitter account. Here's the interesting thing. You know, in my opinion, this all really came to a head back in July 4th of 2018. Now, what some of you are saying, well, this happened like a couple of days ago in mid-July. Why is it that this goes all the way back to July 4th, 2018? Why did, his situation culminate to where it's at now from that date? Well, I tell you why. In my opinion, could be wrong about this, but James Gunn, he likes to get online. He likes to argue with people. He argues with people about President Trump. He argues with them about the alt-right, about Republicans. He argues about politics in general and ideologies. He argues about fandom, different types of fandom, and he argues about Star Wars. And it was on July 4th of 2018 that he interjected himself in the whole Star Wars argument. And this is a quote by James Gunn on Twitter. Star Wars or any movie may be important to you, but it doesn't belong to you. If your self-esteem depends on how good you think the current Star Wars is, or your childhood is ruined because you don't like something in a movie, go to therapy. And that's James Gunn's words that he wrote on Twitter back in July 4th. And to me, I think that was the nail. I think that was the final nail in his coffin, so to speak. Not to be morbid, but I think after that really started to garner a lot of attention in James Gunn's way. Now, why do I say that? Well, first of all, Star Wars is a massive franchise. A lot of fans are very hurt and disappointed by the last two films, especially the last one, which is The Last Jedi. A lot of YouTube videos that talk about Star Wars regularly started talking about this. Now, a lot of you will say, well, what does this have to do with his perverted tweets? Well, I'm leading up to it, okay? Basically, if you want a successful YouTube video, just make anything about Star Wars, and you're guaranteed to get lots of hits and views and all this other stuff. People love Star Wars. People love hating on Star Wars. People love listening to people hate on Star Wars. People love listening to people praise Star Wars and talking about how wonderful it is and everything in between. It's a very guaranteed topic to get people to check out your channel and all this other stuff. So, needless to say, Star Wars is hot stuff for a lot of YouTube channels. And once James Gunn made this tweet and people started talking about it on YouTube, guess what happened? There's people on YouTube that also have Twitter accounts. And so they started like, okay, let's check this guy out, and they started looking at his Twitter account. Now, fast forward to a couple of days ago, sometime in mid-July, and a lot of internet sleuths started looking at a lot of his past tweets. One of these guys is a man by the name of Mike Cernovich. Now, Mike Cernovich is an independent journalist. He vlogs and blogs and does YouTube videos and Twitter and whatnot. And on Twitter, he has about 400,000 plus followers. Don't know why that's relevant, but I'm just telling you anyway. So this guy was one of the people that started looking into the past of Mr. James Gunn, and they noticed like he had all of these perverted tweets about pedophilia and rape and what have you. A lot of dark, evil stuff. Ever since then, it's managed to become headline news now, not just online, but also in the mainstream media. And surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, there's people that's divided on this. There's some people like like on the quartering YouTube channel, the guy on it kind of says that James Gunn made a lot of inappropriate tweets and jokes about pedophilia and rape, but at the end of the day, if these are just jokes, is that enough to get somebody fired? There's a lot of hate mobs that go out there and they look for things on people to basically just take them down. Even though James Gunn expresses unpopular political opinions to some people, does that mean that he deserves to be ripped apart for him trying and failing miserably to make edgy jokes? I mean, that's the argument essentially, without putting the words in the mouth of the guy who does the quartering channel. That's kind of like his opinion. I recommend you check out his latest YouTube videos to kind of get the gist of that. Now, you look over on the other side of the spectrum, you got people like on YouTube, such as Ethan Van Sciver. He's basically like, James Gunn, he has to go. These tweets are indefensible, they're disgusting, they're sick, there's something wrong with this individual. Get him out of here. He's got to go. And so that seems to be the two extremes on the spectrum. Disney did fire James Gunn, so he's no longer going to be writing or directing or having anything to do with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And he was fired on Friday. And this announcement came from Walt Disney Studios chairman Alan Horn. This is what Alan Horn had to say. The offensive attitudes and statements discovered on James's Twitter feed are indefensible and consistent with our studio's values, and we have severed our business relationship with him, Horn had said in a statement. And also, James Gunn himself, I don't know if he took this to Twitter or where he did the statement online at, but basically he went on to say to the effect of, my words of nearly a decade ago at the time totally failed in an unfortunate effort to be provocative. I've regretted them for many years since. Well, I don't understand why he didn't delete these tweets saying if he regretted them that bad. Anyway, not just because they were stupid, not at all funny, wildly insensitive, and certainly not provocative like I had hoped, but also because they don't reflect the person I am today or have been for some time. Regardless of how much time has passed, I understand and accept the business decision taken today, even these many years later. I take full responsibility for the way I conducted myself then. The situation around James Gunn continues to get worse and worse and worse. Not only did he have 1 or 2 or 3 tweets about pedophilia and rape, probably at least 30 tweets out there floating that people were able to save. And it's a lot more than that, but we're not really for sure because the day that all this started coming down, he started deleting tweets like a madman. He deleted over 10,000 tweets. Now, to be fair, not all those tweets can be about rape and pedophilia. At least I hope not. Certainly not, right? But it had to be enough to where it required like a big blanket delete of 10,000 tweets over a period of certain number of years. But making the situation worse is that he actually may have tweeted back and forth with a convicted pedophile by the name of Houston Huddleston. Now, Floyd Houston Huddleston, he's an American writer and director known for The Greatest Show Ever and 6 Chicks and a Dead Guy. He's also the founder of the charity fraud organizations, the Hollywood Sci-Fi Museum in 2012, and also the founder of the Hollywood Horror Museum in 2015. Houston Huddleston, he ended up getting arrested in April 24th of 2018. He was charged with child pornography and other crimes, including contacting a minor with an intent to commit a felony. So you pretty much get the gist of what that is. Later on, he ended up pleading guilty to one misdemeanor charge of possessing child pornography and has been added to the sex offender registry. Now, the interesting thing, like as I mentioned earlier, there was a tweet in 2010 from Houston to Huddleston, I should say, to director James Gunn referencing pedophilia. And then here's even this picture of the two of them standing together. Which, the picture itself shouldn't be, I'm not really a guy that believes that you're guilty by association, but at the same time, here's his picture with him. There's the tweets. or the tweet, I should say, and then there's the multiple tweets about pedophilia and rape on his Twitter account, or used to be anyway. At the end of the day, I believe Disney made the right call by getting rid of James Gunn. Regardless if these were just jokes or not, because the jokes were highly, highly inappropriate. And it wasn't just one joke or two joke or three. It was 30 plus. So many that in fact he had to delete 10,000 tweets just to be safe. So Disney made the right call in what they did by getting rid of him. Now, if it was me, I think Disney needs to take this as an opportunity to send out a memo, send out a statement to every single employee that works for Disney, for all the different studios, all the different directors and writers and actors, on down to the publishing end, to Marvel Comics. And the memo needs to be something to the effect of, hey, if you work for us, you are to conduct yourself as a professional. You're not to make any lewd, deviant, devilish comments online. I don't know how to word it, but just basically conduct yourself as a professional on social media or wherever you happen to frequent online. Be professional, and remember that you represent this company, you represent this brand, and you're putting the future of a lot of employees at stake. There might be some people now that will never watch Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, I think, when the third movie comes out, and it still will come out, people will go watch it. But there's going to be some people that's just not going to watch it because they're going to remember this whole James Gunn situation. That's just how it is. And if you're wanting to run a successful business, you want as many people as possible to come watch your movie or buy your product or what have you. And so if Disney is really sincere about things and wanting to nip this stuff in the bud and prevent it from happening in the future, both morally and as a business decision, they need to have a memo go out, and they need to spread the word throughout all their employees from big to small, and let these people know that, hey, this type of behavior is not going to be tolerated. You're not going to make these bizarre, weird statements online. You're not going to engage fans if you can't conduct yourself as a professional. That's how I think Disney should handle it. I don't think Disney's going to do that, though. I think Disney basically went into full panic mode, and there's like, you know what, this is too hot to handle. This is going to be bad PR, so let's go ahead and get rid of him as soon as possible. And so I think that's the end of it. I don't think Disney is honestly going to send out a memo and contact everybody and say that this behavior stops today, because it isn't just James Gunn that is making inappropriate comments online. It's a lot of people that's employed by Disney. Too many to list. The other thing to wrap up this conversation that I think is interesting, that I've not really heard many people talk about, is I got to thinking about this whole situation, and something that I feel is kind of worse than James Gunn's inappropriate tweets is, why did it take so long for James Gunn to get caught? Why did it take so long for people to start calling him out on his tweets? And that's what I find disturbing, that we live in a society where James Gunn's tweets about pedophilia and rape and all this other stuff are so permissible and acceptable that you can have so many that you have to delete 10,000 tweets just to get rid of them. Why do we live in a society like that, where such content is permissible, And why did it take so long for him to be challenged on this stuff? Now, I'm sure some people did, but it had to be en masse for him to get in trouble like he did the past couple of days. So why couldn't this have happened when he made the first 2 or 3 tweets way back when he first started? Because had it happened back then, maybe he would have learned his lesson. Maybe he would have corrected his tweeting behavior or what have you. And then, he'd be going on to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and all this other stuff. But, that's not to be, And it reminds me a lot of the story many years ago that I read, or maybe I seen it in a video, I can't remember. I'm going to say I read it. Basically, there was this 4-year-old or 5-year-old Chinese girl, and she was crossing the street, and she got hit by like a van or a bus or a truck, and the van went on. It didn't stop for her. It just kept going, and she laid there in the street, and cars would drive around her. people would walk around her. People would walk down the street and they wouldn't do nothing to help her. And this went on for like a couple hours, and she just laid there. And I'm not for sure. I think she ended up dying. But anyway, somebody did eventually check on her after many hours of laying in the middle of the street. But it caused a big stir in China several years ago to really question the morality of what has went wrong in that society. I don't think anything really came of it since then. You know, I don't think people really corrected their behaviors or anything like that in China. And I don't mean to be mean to the Chinese or anything like that. But this story reminds me of that. I know it's not quite the equivalent. You know, James Gunn, as far as I know, hasn't hurt anybody or done anything to anybody physically or anything like that. You know, these are just tweets so far. But how these two stories relate is in how people basically allow some type of injustice or this type of something seriously wrong to remain and become the norm and just walk past it, just walk around it instead of dealing with it. We've got a bad cultural thing where the vast majority of people in the United States, the vast majority of people worldwide are decent people, regardless of what country you live in. The vast majority of people are decent people at the heart of us. But the problem is, we just want to be left alone. We want to live our lives. We want to work our jobs and find what little joy in this life that we can find. But the thing is, we want to be like ostriches. And when we see things that we don't like, we stick our head in the sand. We turn the TV off. We throw the newspaper or magazine away. We don't watch that movie or whatever. We turn the news off if we don't like what we hear. That's what the vast majority of us does. We run away from it and pretend like it doesn't exist. And these people that are committing these behaviors, they take it as like, well, we can do more of this. And they do. They think that they are the majority. They think that they are normal, that their behavior is normal, and that their behavior is morally acceptable because they've remained unchallenged. And it breaks my heart that it took this long for people to challenge him on this. But the good news is he was challenged. The good news is, and he's not the only one, people are finally starting to work up the courage to say, hey, I don't care if you're some high-level politician. I don't care if you're my favorite actor, writer, director. I don't care if you're this person or that person. Your behavior is abysmal. It is wrong. There's something wrong with it, and I don't accept it, and you shouldn't do it. And just, saying things like that is a step in the right direction, and people are finally starting to do it. They've been doing it for the last couple of years. And a lot of people have been committing these offensive behaviors are in shock because they don't know how to deal with it because they've been unchallenged for decades. So anyway, that's kind of like my thoughts on things. I'm glad Disney fired James Gunn. I do believe he's innocent until proven guilty, as far as like, yes, he did do like a ton of inappropriate tweets, but as far as we know, that's all he done. But that picture and that tweet between him and Houston Huddleston is pretty damning, so I don't know what to make of that. So I'd like to know what you all think in the comments section down below. Do you agree or disagree with anything I said? What do you think about the whole James Gunn situation? Do you think this all really came to a head once he made that Star Wars comment? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. You tend to be a lot more articulate, well thought out than I am, and I enjoy reading your comments, and I think a lot of other people do as well. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, found it informative or what have you. And I'm trying really, really hard to get to 1,000 subscribers, so if you would humor me or help me out, I'd really, really appreciate it. And as always, this is CB Smallwood, and I will see you in the next video.